Hello and welcome to the Android Beginners Lesson 5. I'm Erwin, I'm the tutor for this lesson, and this is it, the final lesson. We have covered a lot, we have seen a lot of Android, we know about most basic things, we can do many kinds of apps, we know about good practices, um, uh, good components to work with the applications. We know how to work with intents, with fragments. We know about views, lists, recycle views, web views. We learned a lot. And the final lesson is all about system integration, which means it's, well, the that's it, system integration. It's about making the app part of the system, meaning that the application can interact with users outside of the application itself, and kind of like intents, right? Where you can send the intent and the application can interact with another application or a loader. And you can also use those to the content providers and the loaders. You can use them to share data with the applications, and that kind of counts as system integration. But the part of the lesson is about two things: widgets and notifications. We also covered a bit about the Play Store, but since there's a cost associated with actually using a Play Store account, we know many people won't be using that part of the course. But it's good to know. Uh, After all, you have to know how to use the Play Store to actually publish an app. Well, you could also throw the APK into a website and distribute your application on your own. But the Play Store is the best place to actually deploy your apps because there is actually app indexing. It will show up on recommendations. You can track your progress, like the number of downloads. You can track the amount of money and revenue that you're making with your app. You can, well, there's a lot of benefits. And that comes with the Play console. Um, well, there's a lot to cover, and that could be a whole topic on itself. But uh, for this course and for this lesson, I want to talk about widgets and notifications. We already know what they are. How can we make a basic one? But I want to talk about some perks, some little things you can do with them to make them more appealing or more useful for the user. Right? After all, the user is the purpose of making an application. If the user is not happy with our application, they won't use it. We won't get revenue, and well, there'll be no point in making an app if no one is going to be using it. So let's begin with the presentation. Let's see. Lesson 5. Well, let's start. Lesson 5. We learn about user interaction outside of our application, right? The thing is that users don't have to actually be part, be using our application to be part to, well, for us to interact with them. We can have, well, you saw notifications and widgets, so we can present some functionality to the users so they can actually interact. Like if we made a to-do list, it will make sense to have a widget associated with that to-do list, right? Because then the to-do list will have, well, the user can have the list on their home screen, and that will be much more useful than having to start the application and navigate to the list they are interested in. So user interaction is all about having the user app even when it's not on the first, well, on the foreground. So we do like widgets and notifications. We'll talk, I will talk about some perks, some little things that you can do with that. Um, and as I said, they allow interaction outside our app, displaying the list that the user is trying to use. Like maybe it's a grocery list, the user can have it on their home screens. Maybe we have a notification for the to-do list so they remember to do certain tasks at certain time. And that's the thing about the interaction. If the user had to actually open the app and browse to the lists, they will get tired and bored. Like it's not really good app design. We have to consider the user may just want to look at their phones and have their information there. And that's kind of the point of these things, to integrate the system to a point that it becomes normal, right? And the thing is, widgets are small pieces or windows of functions of our application. It will probably be the main function, like the lists will be the main screen, right? Like the list is what will be in the widget, but not necessarily, since there are the Play Store widgets actually can act as bookmarks, and that's not the main purpose, right? But a widget can be anything that will be beneficial to the function of our application. And most importantly, that allows the user to use their application. Maybe a lightweight version, but the functionality has to be there. And they allow jumping to the app. Like when you have a notification, you can click that notification and we'll send you to the corresponding activity, right? Or the widget. Most widgets have a logo or maybe an image. Like think of a music player widget. You could click on the name of the song, and it will take you to the full application and to the now playing, right? Like the playing activity, so you can like I don't know handle the music, the track, like you could add it to a folder or something. But the thing is that widgets on its own are like messages, well, also notifications. They don't have to actually open the application, but it's really useful when they do. And the thing is, they have to be simple. They have to be simple because there are small pieces. You don't want to have like the full. Imagine if the Play Store had a widget and that widget was actually the home screen. There will be way too much information for a simple widget, right? Maybe the widget could have the favorite items or maybe recommendations or something, but not the whole application. It will be pointless to have a widget that offers this exact same functionality of application. It will be way too complicated as well. So, widgets. What are widgets? Widgets are small pieces of our application. It allows the user to interact with them. There are simple widgets, there are a list widgets, there are collection widgets, and there are hybrid widgets. We'll learn about those, like maybe a simple widget that just lets you see an event or something, a collection widget like a gallery widget that displays lots of items, and a hybrid widget like a music player, right? Because it displays information and has controls. So widgets are used to show a small piece of an application and display lists or relevant info. A widget, for example, if the widget is for a shopping list application, it will make sense to actually display a list, right? But a widget that will be displaying like say the user configuration or preferences, that will really be useful, wouldn't be useful because it's not relevant. And what good will come from that widget? Nothing. And of course, collection widget like human, and a hybrid widget like a regular music player. Interacting with widgets. We learn widgets can't actually make use of all the gestures and interactions that a normal application can. Like, since they're part of another activity, most cases the home screen widgets are limited. And the home screen will be mostly being swiped and loading other menus and stuff. There are limitations what we can do with the widgets. Mostly widgets are limited to scrolling and touching events. Vertical scroll and touching events. Most widgets support the touch command. Like I said before, clicking on a widget may open a link to the application that that the widget comes from, and directly to the activity, like a list. Let's keep with the shopping list example, right? A shopping list, you click an item and it will take you to the description of that item. Also on Gmail, right? Or on a music player, if you use Gmail and you click an email, right? It will take you to the actual full email. Well, within the activity where you could reply or delete, start, whatever, right? But Mood widgets support this functionality. Clicking events to actually take you to the full activity. Widgets are used like a headline, right? And when you click them, you are taken to the activity, so you could interact with them and so on. So they open the application and directly relevant. Collection widgets usually allow managing objects. Like in Gmail, well, you can see you can actually write new emails from the widget, right? You click on that and you're taken to the right. On other widgets, you can actually delete items directly from the widget or add items to the widget. If you're using a reminder app, you can actually add or delete items directly from the widget without actually having to open the application. And those kind of functions are what really makes a widget stand out. Like why the users keep the widgets in their home screens. Because they can interact with the application and they can actually work with them without actually having to load the whole application, right? Maybe they are busy or something, and widgets offer lightweight functionality. Like maybe you are adding an item, and from a widget, it will offer all the characteristics like a grouping or categorizing or something like that. But you can add them, and that's the important part. And and then we have widget sizes. Widget sizes are very important because the home screens are not infinite. They actually have limited space. And we have to consider that widget being too small won't be useful for most things. Like if you guys know about Steam is a game publishing platform, well, distributing platform. They have a phone application that allows you to get a password to access your account from another device. That widget is like 2 squares by 1 square. Is really small, but only shows like an activation code. So its purpose is very related to the size, right? It doesn't show much, so it doesn't take much space. But think about Gmail. You won't want a 2 by 1 Gmail widget. Like, how could you actually read your emails? It will make sense. You may want a 4 by 4 widget. So you could display clearly the emails, the info, right? And the thing is, how do you pick a size? Well, there are guidelines, there are guides, and there are even material design, guidelines for designing a widget size. The thing is, sizes are not like set. You can't think of, I want to do something with my widget, and you go on the internet and it says, this is the size you have to do to use. No. The thing is, you have to actually know what you want to do, and you have to know what size will be useful. Like, and there are no limitations on how small it can be. Well, there is one. Uh, but there is actually no a set size that it has to be. You can make it the size you want. But as I said, there is just one limitation. Minimum size of a widget can't be bigger than four. Well, it says for 4 by 4, but it's actually four columns that you have to be worried about. And that is because most phones actually have a 4 columns of size on their screens. Like, of course, tablets have a much bigger screen size so they can fit large widgets, but the phone can't. Like, if you make a widget bigger than 4 columns, it won't fit the phone. So that is the one rule you have to be worried about. And on widgets, there's also resizing a widget. Of course, you may have already stumbled upon a widget that does this kind of behavior. Like collection widgets, like the gallery, you can resize them to actually show more elements or less elements or whatever. And that is done by adding this property to the metadata. When you create a widget and you set the min size and the refresh time, right? You have to add resize mode. So you can actually resize the widget once it's set. You add min resize weight so that the widget can't be resized to a size less than what you specify here. This is because some widgets may become unreadable or unusable when they are too small. Like if there is 1 column of space word in an email app, you will only read like 5 letters, and that's no use, right? Also mirrors as hate. So maybe you want to display a grid like in the gallery app, and the height you want to set it so it's at least 1 item, right? Showing half items, that is also not good. Resizing can be horizontal, vertical, both, or none. That makes sense, of course. And you specify those in resize mode. You add horizontal, vertical, or you can add horizontal and vertical. Of course, you don't want to resize it, you just don't add resize mode. So when to use resizing? Of course, you may want to add a resize option um, when there is there's a need to actually use a resize. Well, not a need, right? Like the email app may not need to be resizable, but collection widgets usually makes use of this because they may want to load more data if they have more space. Collection widgets for a image gallery might want to show more items if it's bigger instead of making bigger items. So it's more useful. And that's the obvious piece, right? Show more information. But what about other widgets? Other widgets may also make use of this, so they are bigger or show another information, But if they are actually showing information about one type of event, what do we do with them? Well, you may already have an application that does this. You actually use um, the resizing to show different layouts, like this weather app. On the minimum size, it just shows the state, like the actual weather and the temperature. Then you can show more information if it has more space. Then it can show the location plus the day or time, right? And then you can show the whole weather for the whole week. And that's what resizing is for. You don't have to resize widgets, but if you can do something more with widgets, it will be great for the user, right? And who doesn't want a happy user? And this is how you do this, right? You add in your widget activity. You have to add the call to on app widget options changed. This method receives when a widget or resized, and this is where you update your layouts, your information, what you're displaying, right? And what this has been resized to, it's in the new options bundle. You can take that from there and actually apply the changes, right? It's really not much different than creating a widget. You just update the information based on that. Okay, that has been widgets. So let's talk about notifications. Notification has been with Android for a very long time, and they have actually been redone many times. For many things, they have new functionality and new stuff added to the notifications. And in fact, there is a new method of actually using notifications in the new Android version, Android Oreo. They added notification channels that allow grouping notifications. Like if you're sending many messages, you can actually group them like a list notification, but this can be expanded like it's just a small summary, and once it's expanded, it shows all the notifications that have been issued with that. Uh, like this can be used when maybe your application is sending, it's a messaging application, right? And the messaging application may want to send a notification for a new message, or maybe you have a like a social network, right? And you can display a friend invitation or something like that. You can group those notifications, and they'll have different priorities, different ringtones, different layouts, and all that, and they all show together, so they don't take much space on the notification row. So another perk of that is that it allows the user to opt out of certain notifications. Like they only want to receive notifications for one type of action, they can just uh, select that type of notification instead of being sort of all of nothing kind of deal, right? But um, that is not really our focus on this course. Android O is really new, and it should be good to experiment with that. But since those are actually features exclusive to Android O, you may want to use the Compact library and actually use notifications so they can they can work for the other APIs. So, okay, notifications. There are small messages that the user can view. They are shown in the notification drawer, that is the, well, you swipe down from the screen and you access the notification drawer. They are usually shown as a small icon when they arrive, and they are small messages. They're just used to inform that they use to the user that something of interest has happened. They have three important parts: a small icon, a title, and a content. These are like the required things that a notification must have, so, but of course they aren't required, but they are the things. If they have to have something, it's that. You can add a lot of other things, like you can add the priority, like it will be shown on top of the stack. You can add a vibration. You can actually wake the screen when your notification arrives. There are a lot of stuff that you can do with a notification. And of course, when a notification arrives, you can actually make it so clicking the notification takes you to the activity. Like if it's a new message application, you click it, a new message notification. You click the notification, and it will take you to a new message, so you can review its content. User of important events, of course, that's the purpose of the notification. They can, well, there is also a bad part about notifications. They are an easy way to catch the user attention. And since they're so easy to use, you might be tempted to like spam notifications, so the user has to actually see your application. Well, that doesn't work. The user can just disable the notifications for their app, or if they are too annoying, they can just uninstall our app, and we don't want that. You have to be careful with what kind of notifications you are throwing. And of course, users have to be able to opt out. You can't send notifications to a user that doesn't want notification. You have to let the user decide if they want them. Usually in a settings screen, or when they join a group or something, you have to ask them if they want notifications or not. Otherwise, you don't have to send them anything. It's considered intrusive and rude, and of course, it will lead to unhappy users. So what types of notifications are there? There are single line notifications. This is what we learned in the lesson, right? You set the content, title, and icon. But those can be a bit limiting, right? Like maybe you want to do like an inbox notification, like the one in Gmail, where you receive many messages and then you see one notification that has many messages or many emails, right? Or maybe you have seen that music players usually show a notification with the controls so that you can stop the music, or like the download manager shows a notification showing progress, right? Those kind of things can also be done with notifications. Of course, not the simple ones. There are actually types of notification styles, they're called, that you can add to a notification so you can change its behavior. Styles work on, I think, Android 4.1. So on older APIs, they're just ignored. This kind of behavior you may want on a notification, the longer text, images, or maybe those buttons, like on messaging apps, you have a button that says reply or dismiss or something like that. You can add those kind of things. There are styles and actions that you can do, right? An action is what we call one of those buttons, or what we do when we click the notification. That's an action. A style shows more information about the event, right? Like a long text or an image. And there's also ongoing notifications like the download manager I mentioned, or the music player. Those are ongoing notifications because they stay on the notification drawer, they can't be dismissed. That usually prompts a dialogue, and they can cause exceptions and errors. Making it clear. First, there are four styles I want to talk about that you can add to a notification. The first one is the big text style. This one is useful when you actually want to display a big text. Like, imagine a game that you have a big event and you want to interest the user, right? So you show a big text style notification that displays the long text and the information that is needed and whatnot. That maybe that won't be possible in a single line notification. It's useful when you are sending important messages, so the user doesn't have to click on it to view the whole message. Of course, you may want to actually click on the notification, but the thing is that it should be used to display lots of information. Events, and descriptions, right? And this is how you actually implement a notification. It's really similar to how you do a normal notification. You can see it has the builder and content and whatnot. There are two things that are different. Set large icon, it just shows a larger icon on the notification. Usually when an application wants to make emphasis on something, like a messaging application will show a large icon, maybe for the profile picture of the sender, so you can identify it better. That's what large icon is for. Like when a notification is collapsed, right? It's very small, so they show the small icon, and then when it expands, they show the large icon. That is a property that you can add to every notification. It's not exclusive to the big style notifications. The thing to actually make a big style notification is set style. You add a big style notification and you add the big text property. This is where the big text goes, obviously. And well, what can I say about big text style notification? There's really not much. They're really self-explanatory. So let's go to big picture style notifications. This is another very, very simple type of, well, adding something to a notification. It displays a large picture. You probably have seen these type of things in promotions or whatnot. And it's used to, well, display images. There's really not much to it. A messaging app, well, you receive just an image, it may display that image, right? Well, that's because that's the point, right? A notification should inform the user of important data. A promotion that may interest you, it's also something that you might want to use that, like it's a flyer or maybe an event or a map or direction, something. And of course, this is how you do a big picture style notification. It's practically the same as a big text style. Just the difference is that in set style, you create a new big picture style instead of a big text style, and you add the image, like a bitmap or, well, usually it will be a bitmap. You can get that from references and resources or wherever you want, but well, the inbox style is the type of notification that messaging apps use. You probably have seen this type of notifications, Gmail, WhatsApp. I'm not sure if Facebook Messenger uses this, but when you receive many messages from in one application, instead of showing one notification for each one of the messages, they actually group them and show a big notification that it says you have like 5 new messages and it shows like a little summary, the sender and some summary text. And it's not only useful for messaging apps. An app may create multiple notifications, right? You may want to keep the user informed about something that is going on, but you shouldn't actually throw new notifications everything that a small things happen. Instead, you have to group them. It's not only a good practice, but it's the recommended way of handling multiple notifications by Android. And this is how, well, of course, that's the purpose, keeping the navigation router clean. And like if you had 10 messages and you had to scroll all the way down so you can see a notification that you are interested in that is not even from the application that sent a notification, will be, well, very annoying. And this is how you do it. You set the style. Of course, it's exactly the same as the other ones, only the style is changing from one style to another. There are still notifications. You set the style to an inbox style, and you can add the line. With add line, you actually add all of the lines on notification. In this case, will be messages, right? Content title is like maybe it's from a certain group or something. You may want to actually set the title of the whole lot of messages. And summary text is just like, of course, you consider clustering more is just to let the user know that they may have more messages. And this can be used in a lot of ways, but this is the most obvious one and the most, well, the clearest one to understand. And finally, probably the most complicated one, the media style notification. The media style notification is what the music player uses when you start. Well, also media players like video players and whatnot use them too. But the music player, what it does, it starts a notification that has controls to. Well, it's most commonly pause, go back, and go forward. You can actually have like 5 different actions, but the default is 3. The media style notification is for this exact purpose, to give control over some media service or process that is running on the background. But it's important that the user still can use the process even if the application is not on the foreground, right? Like you have to keep the music player open to actually listen to music, it'll be well, it won't be a good decision, right? It's a service that is very well seen as a background process. And this is what allows you to actually control the application from anywhere. You can also add a widget, right? Like, of course you can, but notifications, especially these ones, since they are used for ongoing stuff, they are pretty much required when you are doing some of this functionality. That's playing the controls. As I said, usually there are 3, but you can display up to 5 controls. A music player is what uses this generally. And here's the cool thing, it can display controls on the lock screen. I'm pretty sure you guys have noticed when you use a music player, you can actually lock your phone, and when you're trying to unlock your phone, you can actually control the music player from there. It's a really neat function that many applications won't even use, right? Because why they want to use controls from the lock screen? But it serves its purpose very well for this kind of thing. And of course, this is how you actually add a media style notification. You create the notification as always. And when you create a media style, This parameter, set media session, is what allows you to actually use the lock screen as part of your notification. It allows you to inform the system that this is going to be an ongoing process and that you want it to be able to keep running, right? Well, and that's the other thing. What is an ongoing notification? I'm sure you have seen this. Well, of course, on the music player, the load manager, even some voicemails uses this. Ongoing notifications are used when there is very important notification or very important processes. Like the music player has to have one of these because it's probably going to be consuming lots of battery and use the processor a lot. So the user has to know that thing is running. The same for download manager. You have to know that something is downloading. You can actually create your own ongoing notification, but the thing is that you have to consider if you really have to use an ongoing notification. A normal notification can be dismissed. Ongoing notifications can't. Yeah. And a problem with a simple notification is that if the user dismisses it, they may just forget about them. So an ongoing notification is used so the user can't actually do this. Maybe it's an scheduling app and the user has a really tight schedule. Using an ongoing notification would be a good idea. Or this can be dismissed. If you try to dismiss them, the phone will usually show a dialog that says this will pass on exception on the application or something like that. These are some types of applications that may use these kind of notifications. I already mentioned them a little bit earlier. And of course, this is their purpose. Information that needs to be there. This is the parameter that you add to a notification to make it an ongoing notification. Set ongoing true. One thing to consider about ongoing notifications is that the system can't delete or dismiss them. So you actually have to do that on your own when you are done with them. Otherwise, of course, they keep running and we know we don't want that. Finally, I say finally, as it's probably the last thing about notification are actions. Notifications, of course, I mentioned they are just messages. They don't do much on their own. They display a little bit of information, but they don't even have an action by default. You may ask, what kind of actions can we add to a notification, right? Like, of course, the obvious actions, like clicking a notification will open the activity. But other notifications, like a messaging notification, have buttons on the bottom part that shows commands like reply, right? Maybe an alarm clock or something, or a timer will show action that is reset timer or add to timer, something like that. Those kind of actions are what we want to add to a notification, right? And we do it like this. And you probably recognize most of this code, maybe the set defaults. These have some default characteristics like vibration to a notification that may not, notifications don't have this. If you are building them just with the content and the title, you can add it like this. You have to add the vibrate permission to your manifest, so that's one thing to worry about. But the next thing, the style. In this case, this is a big text style. Of course, and actions are divided in two parts. The icon, they usually have icons. This is used in compatibility for Android Wear if you are interested in those kind of things. A string that is the text and the intent. This has a pending intent that will show, well, mostly will start an activity or something. You have to declare these three things for every action that you want to add. And this is how it may look. You create intent, right? And depending service and whatnot, you already know that. And on the application that will receive the intent, you have to add the onHandle intent method. This is because an application may actually use more than one intent. So you have to know which one you are responding to, right? You don't want to, if you have a maybe pause and redo, you don't want to do one instead of the other. This is how you actually get to do the one that the user has clicked. And finally, what not to do with notification. Notifications can keep the user attention, right? But they can be misused. You don't have to send too many messages. And if you really have to, you have to group them. There is no way around that. You don't want to clutter the UI, and you don't want to be an annoyance to the user. Constant reminders are also not good. A message for each action. Of course, like a notification for each new message is no good. Or sending irrelevant messages. Welcome back messages or happy birthday messages. Those add nothing to the user experience. Maybe if this is an offer like a happy birthday, here's a 10% discount code, maybe that will be worth it, but just a happy birthday is no good. Rate your app is really bad practice, and you don't want to do that. That's it for notification. Well, that was a lot about notifications, but now let's talk about deploying. That was the last part of the lesson, and I'll try to be quick. Before deploying, there are a lot of guidelines that, well, they are described on the Android side, but I'll try to go a bit over each one of them. To deploy it, there are guidelines. Development, there are guidelines. There are guidelines for everything. But user interface behaves like expected. This means there are clear buttons, clear text, and there is not like you use a download icon, but you make it an upload icon. You don't have to do that. And that's one of the guidelines, a really important guideline. You have to make your user interface clear. Otherwise, it won't be any use. No more permissions than necessary. It should be self-explanatory. You don't have to access the user contacts if your application is just displaying a list, right? Notifications should be used to inform about an event, not something like we have to sync data. It should be used to inform there's something happening. No intrusive ads, right? And the application, on the notifications, on the widget, you have to make sure that the apps are not like getting in the way of the application. You have to handle orientation and restore the states correctly, because you'll know how the phone will be used. Of course, you can actually set the orientation. Games do this all the time. And any given form, like the user register, adding an item or something, you should add a confirmation button when the user clicks back. Otherwise, the user may lose the information they may have clicked by accident, right? You don't have to run services on the background if the app is not running, unless it's a special case like the music player or something. The app is quick, responsive, stable. That's part of the development, but it's also part of a good deployment. These are the main points, and we have covered a lot of how to avoid these things in the course. And The Google Play Console. The Google Play Console is where you will keep track of your apps. You will keep track of deployments, of sales, of installations and disinstallations. This is all done right now. And they have a lot of great features. Like I said, they keep track of all those statistics for you. They can track the app behavior, like how the users are using the app and how the app has behaved on these kind of things. You can manage launches, versions, and testing. They actually allow you to have special channels to do beta launches and soft launches and those kind of things. The Android, well, Google handles that kind of thing for you. And you can also program them. Like if you have a contract to launch the application by a date, you can actually program the application to not go live before that date. And you can schedule soft launches, like sending a launch to a selected group of users so you can test new functions before actually sending it to everyone. And those are some things that the Google Play console allows you to do. The Firebase console can also do that, by the way. The Google Play console is probably more used because it's where every app will go, unless you're not developing for Android. In that case, you might use the Firebase console instead. That's basically it for this presentation. Before going, I want to talk about the exercise. It's a simple list widget exercise. And there's really not much to talk about that. If you already follow the example and know how to create a widget, you have to read a little bit about Remote Views Factory and Remote View Service. They are not very different from an adapter. They are practically, they actually make use of those, right? It's a wrapper around an adapter. If you already know how to use an adapter and you already know how to make a widget and display information in there, it's really just a little step to do a collection widget. So the best advice I can give is just read and try to actually code on your own. So you will learn about those. Well, that's it for the presentation. Well, and this is the last presentation of the course. So, of course, if there anything comes up, you can ask on the forums, or you can. Well, you should always investigate on your own, right? But you can ask on the forums. We can discuss about these things. And well, thanks for listening, and thanks for being in the course. This is very close to finishing, and I hope you guys have learned at least a little bit about this, about the course, and you learned a bit in these presentations. Of course, if you want anything to be covered, or you thought something was not covered very well, or you wanted a different topic, you can always post a message. We'll take those into account. We're always trying to make these things better, right? Of course, if there are no questions, that's it for the presentation. And I hope you guys have a good time on the course and finish the course successfully. Right? Especially if you are, well, you guys are the certified ones, so I hope you learn a lot. And I hope you guys take the next course on the professional development. And that was it. Thanks for listening, guys. And good luck in the rest of the MicroMaster program.